Hello, thanks so much for joining. This is Rachel Burns. Sorry about the wobbly, hang on, sorry about the wobbly phone for just a second. This is Rachel Burns with True Worth Financial Planning. And today I'm going to be talking with a very special guest about why women so desperately need disability insurance. And I'm super excited about my guest because she is the leading expert on this. She is by far the most knowledgeable person that I know. So it's going to be just a moment for me to bring her on. But yeah, we're talking today about why women need disability insurance, what exactly it is, why it matters to you. We'll also talk about some common misconceptions that we hear about it, and then we'll also share some of our own stories. Katiya and I are both full of stories, real life examples of disability situations gone wrong or disability gone right, people that have coverage, people that don't have coverage. So hopefully she'll be joining me in just a minute. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rachel Burns. My firm is called True Worth Financial Planning. I help newly single women get their finances back on track either after a divorce or after the death of a spouse. And so disability is something it's something that I bring up with every client because it's really, really important. I think Katiya's having some trouble joining. Oh, hi Katiya. I see that you joined. Let me send you a co-presenter. Hang on just a second. Okay, so she should be...
Oh. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh. Can you hear me?
So I apologize for the tardiness.
No problem. I was just introducing the topic, introducing us, but now that you're here, I want to give you a proper introduction. So this is Katiya Xiong, and she is my go-to expert for all things disability. She's my go-to expert for a lot of things, actually, because she's an extremely talented person. But Katiya worked for many years as she led the marketing efforts for a disability insurance company. So she's very, very knowledgeable about the topic of disability insurance, which is great. But what I really appreciate about her is she is an extremely gifted communicator, educator. She's so good at taking relatively complex information and communicating it in a way to where it's digestible, it's understandable, it's relatable. And so I thought you would be the best person to talk about this subject because disability insurance is one of those things that people are like, I don't really know what that is, and it's kind of confusing, but we want to hear it from you are the best person to talk about it with us today. So I'm just so excited to talk to you. I'm always excited to talk to you, but I'm excited to share you with everyone else too. So thank you so much for coming on, Katiya.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the fabulous introduction. When it comes to disability insurance, it really is a foreign language, and most people, not people who are selling it, they really have a hard time understanding the terminology. So it really starts with, what do you really need to know about disability insurance? And so I kind of like to kick it back to when I was young, in my first job, my first full-time job, and I opened the group book, group benefits. It's kind of open and over time through my health insurance and pet insurance and whatever else I need that my employer is offering to. And then I noticed group disability benefits. You have long-term disability and short-term disability. So I think just focus on long-term disability because I think most people, they cannot get short-term, injury or illness. They usually have some kind of backup plan for that. But when it comes to long-term disability, there is, a lot of myths going on. I think that you have to be insanely sick or, or paralyzed or totally disabled from a car accident to be getting any disability benefits through your workplace. So that's kind of what long-term disability is meant for. Should you have, let's say, long COVID for 6 or 12 months and have a long-term disability policy through your workplace, look at the contract details, and typically it'll be, 3 to 6 months of waiting time. So just kind of think of that longer of, being at home and unable to work. Can this policy pay out when you're unable to make an income? And so with long-term disability, you can ask your HR professional, or if you have a benefit consultant at work, it really just boils down to, if you don't have enough savings, 3 or 6 months of savings, and you get too sick or hurt and you can't come to work earn your regular income, then the long-term disability policy will pay after 3 or 6 months, depending on the waiting period that you're contracted in. So it really is kind of coined as income protection, which is kind of user-friendly, but I think people even confuse income protection with insurance, but it is the same thing. I went through a recent onboarding of a couple of employees in my past workplace, and I remember the first question the graduate asked is, why do I need disability insurance? I know the employer is paying for it, so why do I need to look at the book? Like, should I just opt in because it's being paid for by the employer and forget about it? Well, I ran him through kind of a scenario of, it really is that different product of how it performs. Like life insurance, everybody understands life insurance. If you die, you get some money, or whoever you need want to support death. Same with disability insurance. If you get hurt or sick for 6, 12 to 5 years, then the policy pays out, so that continue to help your family pay the mortgage, utility, and other necessary expenses, just so you can come back to, hopefully recover. And if not, you have some peace of mind that 50 to 70% of your income is being replaced to help your family survive. That really is the purpose of the insurance. It's not kind of like life insurance where you can get a big lump sum and maybe for after you die, for leave a good fortune for your kids. Disability insurance is really meant to whatever is the percentage that you're comfortable of. If you're sick and hurt, 50 or 80% of your income is being replaced. Let's say you make, let's just say you make $1,000 a month. If you're okay with getting just $200 a month after you're being sick or hurt and you can't work, then that's fine. Most group disability policies will pay about 60%. So that's just automatic. That's a standard across the industry. So for most people, if you're earning under $100,000, typically your group LTD, long-term disability policy insurance is. And then I think another thing that people don't understand, really, I'm not going to get into too much of the details of like the terminology and writers and the definition of disability, but I think one of the most important pieces when I discussed it with a couple of recent high school graduates in my family is the waiting period. We call that the waiting period. Like most people, I don't think you have enough savings that's gonna, help you live for 3 or 6 months. You get into big trouble. You're not working for that period of time, and so you have to kind of think of, what's the question that you're comfortable with, that you can go without money at all. So for most people, they struggle with even having $1,000 in their bank account. And so I would tell them, maybe it's recommended that you save 2 years, but that's almost impossible for most people. So look at your long-term disability insurance policy and see how long do you have to wait before you can get the disability benefit. 3 months or 1 month, then that's what you should plan for emergency cash savings. Typically at 3 months, and so put that in your plan. A couple of savings tips I tell people is, instead of birthday gifts, tell people to donate to your savings fund. Zelle you money, Venmo you money, right? PayPal you. So over probably come up with 3 months, and then get the disability insurance work after that 3 or 4 months of where you are using your savings for that. So really, that is the simple concept of disability insurance: is make sure you have emergency savings for when you're waiting to get disability benefits. And then when you get disability benefits, is that for you through your workplace? And if it's not, then obviously there are a bunch of resources out there, a ton of insurance companies that you can look up, and obviously go through an insurance agent to buy additional disability insurance. So start with group, start with your employer provided disability insurance. And then if 50 or 40% of your income or 60% isn't enough, then look at adding disability insurance, which is yours, private insurance. So if you leave your workplace, you have that private insurance with you. But if you leave your workplace, you're going to lose that group or employer provided disability insurance too. So it's really no different than how life insurance also works, is where you leave your employer, you lose that $100,000 from life insurance through the workplace. You also lose the disability insurance through the workplace. So having a plan A and plan B is great. Plan A, get it through the workplace. Plan B, buy additional. And then that way, when you're gone, and you're not working with your employer anymore, have that additional, even though it's 25 or 50%, it's still better than nothing. And then I think one question that came to me in my webinar, there was a couple of ladies that asked this. They were asking about, well, what happens when you, let's say you buy your own insurance policy, not the workplace, you have your own, that's a private policy, and you become unemployed, right? Terminated or fired, or you need to take a break and not work for peace of mind, right? Well, if you have disability insurance to the workplace, that's not going to carry over when you stop working. But if you have private insurance and you become unemployed for whatever reason, and you become disabled, you're unemployed, depending on the contract, some of these private policies will still pay you a disability benefit even if you're unemployed. They'll just look at your previous occupation, previous job, and use those numbers to calculate, the benefit that you'll get, depending on if you are qualified for being disabled for so many months or whatever they is through illness and injury. And so even for me today, I'm unemployed and self-employed, right? It still works for me too. So you really got to just think about the scenarios and just start from there. For a single person, just have a family, get it. Workplace first, and then you can add layers of additional insurance policies to help you build a solid and stable disability package, protect you and your whole family.
Mm-hmm. Your internet is cutting out just a little bit, but I can still understand you. But what I wanted to mention, so we've kind of talked about what exactly it is and how it works. And I think some people hear that, but they're still like, yeah, but do I really need that? Does that really apply to me? And I want you to think about your own situation. If your income were to stop, if you were physically unable to do your job because you were either sick or because you were injured, and it's not just injuries, by the way, it's sicknesses can cause disability as well. If you're not able to do your job, would your income stop? Oh, I mean, most of us, it would. And Katiya, you and I have jobs where we sit in a chair for the most part. Like you think, oh, we could do that, if we're sick or injured, but I have to correct people. It's like, no, you can't even do a desk job if you are really sick or in a lot of pain. I mean, it's something that can absolutely happen to you no matter what type of job that you have. And if you're a single person, it's extremely important because it's just your income that you have to survive on. You can't just, oh, well, my spouse will keep working or whatever. And then if you have a family who's dependent on your income, then it's really, really important. So it's something that, like, I think it applies to every single person, unless your income truly does not matter. And that would be great. I wish my income didn't matter. But if you can stop working and lose your income and no one's life is disrupted, then that's fine. But if that's not the case, you really need to think about disability insurance. And I think this is a good time to talk about some common misconceptions that you and I both hear about disability insurance, because I hear a ton of them through my clients, and I'm sure you do as well. So do you want to talk about some kind of common misconceptions that you hear about disability insurance?
Yeah, I mean, number one is, you know, I think we're all guilty of this, and I am too, but I always try to remember the outcomes should this happen is really the statistic. People just don't, even though you see the statistic that 1 out of 4 young adults will be sick or in their lifetime for 12 or 24 months between that time. But nobody believes in going through and suffering a disability. And so I think that's, to me, very surprising because I look left and right, and I have family and friends who have disabilities. I've had, been through a period myself where that be total disability, but it's partial disability where you can have mental issues, and that count as a disability. So you gotta just think of, outside bodily harm. There's, mental disabilities, or as I like to call it, visible disabilities, and there's visible disability. So
Yeah.
in this lifetime, if we're not going to go through physical or disabilities, most of the time we'll suffer some kind of mental disability, whether it's severe or not. And so I think the myth is just people don't believe that it's going to happen to them or anyone they love, or their friends or colleagues, but it does. And if you look around closely, you're going to see that, yes, it may not always be cancer, but it's going to be a COVID or having a flu, cold, or it could be you're just out there walking, or like was jump roping. I did like an hour of jump roping for a second row, and for 2 weeks, I was like totally disabled. I couldn't walk. Like my husband had to carry me down the stair for the first week because I just overkilled myself with jump roping. I did like I think
An
2000.
hour of jump roping is a lot if you're not
Yeah,
like a small child.
yeah. I think I was just too excited. I was like, I'm gonna do this. So there I was just focused on the numbers, but I became a burden to my husband for 2 weeks. But imagine if you could just be out of income. And I mean, obviously I have a desk job, so I could, my fingers were fine, so I can sit. But imagine if I was a painter or I was a surgeon performing, and I had to stand up and use tools and think clearly. I don't think I would be able to. But there's all kinds of things that can happen to you cause you to not work for who knows how long. And so I think really people need to understand, and hopefully will accept that disability happens to all of us. If not you, then it guarantees someone in your
Yeah.
lifetime, of people. So
Yeah,
it's really
absolutely.
to me, I think when it comes to that, it's planning for the future. You're not really planning for the present of, oh, it's not going to happen to me. It's really great. If it happens to me, what is my husband going to do? He's a stay-at-home child. What are my kids going to do? So that's really the number one myth buster out there is people just don't think it happens to them or anyone they know. But like if you look closely, and even strangers in the grocery, you'll notice that there are people with disabilities every day.
Yeah. And Katya, I've shared my own personal story, and what's funny is my friend Nicole just joined the room, and she had a first row view of everything that I'm about to tell you. So, I am what I would consider to be a young-ish, healthy-ish person. I might seem that way. I used to be younger, but I've had a slew of health issues that have potentially had a permanently disabling, I could have very easily not been able to work going forward. And I was a very, very young, not very, very young, I was a young, very healthy, so to speak, person that I would have never thought that I would be at risk of being disabled, because I'm like, well, I don't have a crazy lifestyle. I'm not out like roller skating or jumping out of planes or whatever. Like I thought, oh, there's no way it can happen to me. I'm like the person. But I got pregnant with twins, and getting pregnant with any amount of babies is hard on your body, but twins was really did a number on my body. And I was really sick after they were born, and I was really unsure of what my life was going to look like after that. I had a major back injury and had to have surgery. And I have a desk job. I don't need, you know, like you said, I can use my fingers, but I couldn't physically sit in a chair. I couldn't stand. So all I could do was lay face down. That was like the only position I could be in. And I had to be on painkillers pretty much all the time in order to function. And you probably don't want your financial planner high on painkillers while I'm entering trades in your account. It's just not like, I can't do that job if I'm in a crazy amount of pain, or if I'm physically unable to even sit there or stand there. Like I thought that, oh, I'm immune from that sort of thing happening because of the nature of my job. But that back injury almost took me out. And luckily the surgery worked and I was totally fine. And that's just a tip of the iceberg of all the health stuff that happened with me. But I was seriously wondering if I was going to be on disability. And then at the same time, my husband actually went on disability that same year because he had a brain tumor and he had to have surgery, and he qualified for disability. He ended up not being off of work for very long. But if you looked at us earlier in that year, you know, these two young 30-something-year-old people, it's like, oh, look at these young, healthy people. They're not going to be the statistic or whatever. But both of us in the same year were disabled. And maybe we don't look like what they've envisioned for disability. Like you might not be able to tell by looking at us what kind of issues we have going on, but we were both in really, really bad shape. So if it can happen to me, it can happen to everyone. I'm not special. I like to think I'm special. I like to think I'm like a 1 in a million kind of person, like that. But if it can happen to me, it's just like that can happen to anyone. And I hate to be really doom and gloom about that, but it can happen. And if my income, if I was unable to work, and if my husband was unable to work, if we didn't have disability coverage, we would be in bad shape, as most people would be. And luckily, we both had disability coverage, but I ended up leaving my job with a big company, and I'm on my own like you are now. And to be honest, I don't have long-term disability coverage right now. So do as I say, not as I do. Because I'm not insurable right now. And maybe that's a conversation for another day, Katiya, but it's really important that you think about this and you get the coverage in place before there's a need. Because if you wait until you're horrifically injured or you're sick or you have cancer or whatever, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to go apply for insurance now. It's like, well, it's too late now. You needed to have it in place before you needed it. It's like life insurance.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, really, the thing is, if your workplace offers and they allow you to buy up, get it through with the workplace, because typically there is no underwriting, which means they're not check your medical records or do a thorough check with your finances. So there's less qualification. And so just, the employer offers it, and all employees have access to it. It's really a couple of check boxes. Do you want it or not? And like I said, provides for it, they're paying for it. So it's really just a win-win to go ahead and opt in, even though you're kind of unsure of what it will do for you. And I like to remind people too that it's not just the income too, it's also the additional. So you mentioned your husband had brain cancer, and you going through and to obviously with back injury and all that, be on leave. It's also the additional expense. So where disability insurance comes in, you may have to pay for someone to come and clean your house. You may have to pay for a part-time nurse, and all of these extra medical equipment and medicine that are provided or given to you. So these are a lot of unknown expenses when you're sick or hurt for even 3 12 that you don't know. So that disability insurance can also, I know it's going to be there to be helpful with paying for the mortgage, but imagine if you didn't even have that, right? You would have less peace of mind to worry about. Great. So now I don't have disability insurance. I can't pay for the rent or mortgage, and now I have additional medical expenses. My life is just like kind of going down the hill from here. It really, creates additional stress for not only but your family members, because imagine if your spouse had to look at you, going through all of that. He is mentally stressed, right? He might also not be perform well at the place. And so it really affects the whole family, and it's not you, the person who is disabled, short term, long term. And I also like to remind people that, disability insurance is for the living. My father, he's always telling me how he does not understand why is life insurance called life insurance. It should be called dead insurance or death insurance. Disability insurance is really life insurance because it's for the people who's living and for you while you're alive. And so it really is a concept that I think consumers and everybody still has yet to grasp. One is persuading you again to buy. People already know, oh great, that's needed. I'm gonna die. That's a guarantee. But it's not a guarantee that you're gonna be disabled. But the guarantee is you don't know. So that to me is still when you have no idea and no control over what's going to happen. Maybe there's a pandemic part 2 and there's a different kind of COVID. You never know. We saw it. So to me, it's just like, what can you do to better plan for the unknown? And for most of us, it really is just, hard to have that emergency savings. You want to tap into retirement and go through and get tax for that, or you can start things right or do a side hustle. So really emergency savings is tough. That's why this insurance is there to also help be a solution to that. But as you mentioned, where if you make enough money and you have $1 million saved in disability insurance or 100,000, you don't need disability insurance, in my honest opinion. But for most of us, most working Americans, and anyone out there who are ordinary like me and you, still have a hard time to save 12 to 24 months living expenses. Never mind the additional that comes when you're sick or hurt. And so think about that. Just think about, disability insurance, it's for the living. It's for you, your mom, your kids. It's for the future of the next 24 months or 20 years, however long it's going to take for you to get back good again. Yes, most people will not be totally disabled, but most people will be partially disabled, or if they're totally disabled, they're going to be able to recover and come back to work because employers are now offering incentives for them to get back to work with a better share, better working environment, working from home, and all that stuff. So really, I think just knowing that it's there because most of us don't have that savings to cover. So disability insurance to the workplace is really truly a good idea to tap into. And then, people, I think, as I mentioned, it's really life insurance. So my mother was sick and I just thought, oh God, I hope it's not like a terminal illness. She's a farmer. My parents are out farming every day, 10 to 12 hours. Love that lifestyle. I can't stop them. I can't bribe them to stop. I can't pay them to stop. So they're going no matter what. And they have all kinds of, I would say physical injuries from time to time that are short term. But there are some disability insurance policies out there that will pay to go and take care of your elders, your parents, your grandparents, if they're too sick or hurt to work. If my parents are, if they're disabled or they get hurt out in the farm field, my disability insurance policy will pay me an income, because I'm stopping my job, I'm stopping to income to go and care for my parents for 6 months. There are some policies that will pay for you to do that, which is really nice. And there are some policies out there that if you're unemployed, but you have a disability insurance policy, then they'll just suspend payment on your policy. So it's kind of like forbearance, but it's still active. So you don't have to resume payments on your insurance policy until you get a job. So that way you don't have to go through underwriting again and, or cancel your disability insurance and start all over again. Because whenever you buy a disability insurance policy, I don't know if consumers even know that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of underwriting, etc. Unless you were like a young, healthy person in your 20s or early 30s, right? Where you have like any history of any medical concerns, then it'll be like quick and easy for you to get the application process. But for most of us, there's obviously some audit in our medical records or errors, and so it's going to take a while. So really, think of it as the situation, right? If my parents become sick, or my kid becomes sick, or if I become sick, or if I'm unemployed, if I get married, if I have kids. So it's not just if I fall off a ladder, or, but family situations or family stages. That's going to plan for, do I need this reinsurance? If my spouse gets sick, can my disability insurance pay a benefit to me to take care of my spouse because I stopped working? Or or if I'm married and, now I have, 2 kids, can I buy more of this reinsurance because I'm going to be earning more or have responsibilities? Or if you, every 2 or 3 years, you're getting a salary increase, right? Do I need to up my insurance coverage, just like life insurance? So you got to really kind of make the disability insurance planning process a big part of your financial planning process. Just really keeping it in there, checking it in every couple of years at least, and with your financial advisor on what can I do to make the policy work for me if this or that.
Yeah. And speaking of having it be an important part of your financial plan, I always tell people when I'm working with them, probably the biggest risk to your long-term financial well-being is a disability. And a lot of people are surprised to hear that because usually they think, oh, it's like the market crashing or something. But you losing your income is probably the worst thing that can happen to your financial plan. Because like you said, you lose the ability to pay for your current expenses, the expenses that you already have, but then you might not be thinking about the extra expenses that you mentioned. Like, what if you need someone to come in and help you do all these things? Or what if you need to adapt your home to make it accessible? There's other extra expenses that can come up if you are sick or injured. But then there's also the loss of your retirement contribution. So if you're not able to work, you're not able to earn an income, that means you're not able to save for the future too. So not only are you can't cover your expenses now, you're also not going to be able to cover your expenses in the future because you're not able to save. And that's where your disability becomes it has a lifelong impact on your finances, because you'll probably, most people get better. Most people, they either heal or whatever, and they're able to go back to work at some point. But that time when you're not able to work and you're not able to save, that does damage on your long-term financial plan. So it's really, it's a lot more important than I think people realize. And I also wanted to go back and address something that you mentioned earlier. You talked about needing to prove insurability. So I don't know that that's something that everyone understands. So let's say I get disability coverage through my work. By me just getting a job with this company, I'm already added to the group insurance policy. Like if I opt in, I don't have to prove how healthy I am. I just check a box, like you said. You can just sign up and you don't have to prove anything. If you leave that job and you can't take that policy with you, sometimes they let you take it with you. You can opt to turn it into an individual policy. But when you go out and get an individual policy, if you're either self-employed or you're unemployed or whatever, you have to prove insurability, and I'll tell you what that looks like. They send you this application that's like, have you ever had this? Have you ever had this? And mine is check, 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 check. I mean, I have every medical issue you can think of that disqualifies you from disability insurance. And I'm like, oh, well, crap. So keep in mind that especially if you're thinking about going out on your own, like Katiya and I did, and starting your own company, when you need to get your own, what's that?
Make sure you're healthy first.
Make sure you're healthy first, yeah. But keep in mind, to go get your own policy, you have to go through the underwriting process, which means they're going to look they're going to see what's under the hood, and it might be a big mess. So it's just something that not everyone's aware of. And same with life insurance. If you were going to go out and get your own individual life insurance, they're going to want to know what your medical history is. I mean, it makes sense. They're in it for profit. They're not in it to just be nice and
they will order those medical records everywhere. I think people can make money off of selling medical records.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think that's kind of what scares people too. But I want to let people know that don't be scared of that as well, because sometimes, as you're going through the process, you may not get what you want. Let's say you're trying to apply for $5,000 a month, and you're semi-healthy, but however, you're only approved for 2,500, and that's still okay. And there might be an exclusion, which means that they may say, okay, well, you've had this illness before, so we're going to exclude it. So in the future, if you have this illness again, anxiety or whatever it may be, then you don't qualify. We're not going to pay you any disability benefit. Policy may not be as strong as you wanted it to, because they uncovered, pre-existing or previous conditions you had. Put it on there saying X, future, if you get this, then we're not going to this. But anything else outside that, of that one or two that they discovered about you, they will cover it. So if you fall from a ladder, you get long or whatever, that they
Cook, you still there?
you can definitely get the disability benefits, most likely. Oops. Can you still hear me?
And
Okay.
you're cutting out a little bit. Yeah, hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, and don't let what I say scare you. How I said I'm uninsurable. So if you have something in your medical history, it's still certainly worth it to look into what coverage would cost and whether you would qualify, because they could either not approve you, which is like worst case scenario. They could have some exclusions. Well, it's like, we'll cover you unless it's this one thing, which that's better than nothing. I mean, it's better to be mostly covered than nothing. Or they might adjust your premiums. So your premiums might be higher if you have, is that right? So disability insurance, to get your own policy, it's not an insignificant amount of money. It's not, this is not a super cheap coverage that we're telling you to go out and get. Like, I appreciate the fact that this is a big thing to work into your budget. If you need to go, especially if you're self-employed or whatever, disability insurance can be a little bit expensive. But the thing is, you need to think about the potential cost of having a problem down the road, and how that would impact you financially versus how paying the premiums along the way can impact you financially. Because the threat of having, I mean, it's like the threat of having your finances destroyed versus paying a premium. It's similar to having your house burned down. It's like, yeah, I don't want to pay fire insurance if I'm not going to use it, but at the same time, if my house burned down, I couldn't just like replace it. So it's an investment, but it's just a part of your financial plan. It's an important part.
And I know this is what I would tell myself, and I talk to myself all the time when it comes to disability insurance. Am I willing to take risk? If something were to happen to me, am I okay with having just this much as going out there and taking up another side hustle and maybe working at, is that okay for me? So really just what risk are you okay with? Because I think you can't eliminate all the risks. I think the best thing that you can do is just trying to better manage it, better control the risk, and really just help to make sure that you are doing what you can. That's terminology that we always hear about, but you can do the best that you can. Obviously, if it's cost-free to you through your employer, or if you're buying it, on your own. Private disability insurance policies typically cost between 1% to 3% of your annual income.
Mm-hmm.
That I think be not super expensive or super cheap, but I tend to think of it like a cup of coffee or a cup of large Starbucks a day. So paying for 5 cups of coffee a week, then suppose your disability insurance policy, or even 3 cups of coffee a week, which me like 2 or 3 a week. Then I know that I have enough money to pay for policy. It may not be the best policy with all of the best terminology, and may not be a policy that me to buy. It may be a policy that pays disability benefits only the next 10 years, so it only lasts that long. But that's fine too. So really just apply for it, understand it, and get comfortable with the group long-term disability policies through your workplace, and really just ask your financial advisors. I would even recommend Googling, what does it do, and reading stories about it from other people too, because there's tons of stories out there. You just go to GoFundMe, right, and there's a whole bunch of people that are suffering from disabilities. I mean, you don't want to be in that scenario where you're having to do a GoFundMe. I had to for my own sister-in-law. That was, she had cancer. She passed away, but she didn't have enough savings for her funeral. I had to do it, so I did a GoFundMe. But imagine, if you had to do it while you were disabled, you had cancer, or you were just too sick, you're going to lose the house. So you did a GoFundMe. So, I mean, you don't have to be stories, but just simply go GoFundMe and type in cancer, type in disability, and you're going to see hundreds and thousands of stories out
there. Yeah, yeah. And back to the concept of risk. I think if you are aware of the risk of how likely a disability is and what it would cost you now and in the future, if you're aware of that risk, and if you are like, you know what, I am someone who's comfortable taking risk and I'm going to choose to take that risk, that's fine. Not everyone needs to have this insurance, but you need to at least understand the risk that you're taking and what that risk could potentially look like. Like you can't just be like, oh, I don't really know what it is and I'm just going to not have it. Like you need to understand the risk that you're taking and what you're giving up by not having coverage. So
yeah, and I think that's fair game. If you don't want it, that's fine, but at least try to understand what it is and what this product can do for you and your family. And ask all these silly, dumb, smart questions you want to ask, because it can be a very complex subject to understand, but it could also be very simple. You just understand it as in terms of, oh, it's helping me with my lifestyle, my family. So you can go as comfortable as you want with it, or you can really, once you get comfortable with, just your employer-provided disability insurance, and start to explore, as we were talking about, the individual disability insurance products. If you're a business owner, or what solutions they have out there if you're disabled and you can't run your business anymore, and you can't pay your employees and all of the overhead. So it really is for not just the individual and their family, but businesses as well, and also for family members if they're disabled too. So it really, there's like a tagline there, and it's not mine. I think it's from the CDC. Disability impacts all of us. And so, you're going to start to see it. Again, just go to GoFundMe and you're going to, once you read a few stories, you're going to really see, wow, it really is happening everywhere, except you aren't aware of it or you're not looking at it. So you don't see it. Kind of like being pregnant, right? I remember when I was pregnant, there were pregnant people everywhere. But before that, I didn't see a single pregnant person. I'm sure they were
very true. Yeah.
And everywhere. But so it's really just, okay, if you can kind of see yourself in that situation, or a friend or your story, then you start to be more cognizant of disability, and you can see it everywhere. There was like a lady that to a Walmart, and she was old, and she was disabled, that there was something mentally wrong with her, even though physically she was fine. But she just kept on, like in Nemo, asking the same question over and over, and like where her car was, but she was able to drive to the store. So to me, it's just like disabilities. Again, that number one myth is give it a chance to understand what it can do, the impact and outcomes that it could do for the family. Worst case scenarios, and again, have enough emergency savings, and you're okay. Just once you understand what it is, then that's fine. I think all good financial advisors, like yourself, you're not there to pressure people to buy policies. I think you're truly there to say, here's what I can do to help you understand these products. Are you okay with reading, learning more, or not? So that way you can obviously protect your clients. And so I'm really glad that we're discussion, because without a financial advisor, it really is hard for people to hear from any place else besides maybe HR at their work.
Yeah.
I have friends that, gonna call you, let's go to happy hour and let's talk about disability. Like, that's not gonna
Yeah,
happen.
it's not the sexiest subject, but I still like bringing it up all the time. I don't care how not sexy it is. It's like my favorite topic to beat clients over the head with, and I'll just keep doing it because I've seen with my own eyes what can happen when you don't have insurance and when you do have insurance, whether it's with my own situation or with clients. Like, and it's not like I want to convince everyone to go out and buy a policy. I just want everyone to understand what happens in case you get sick or injured, understand how likely that is, and understand, if the way, whatever you have set up now, if that doesn't seem like a good solution, running out of money or whatever, like understanding that there are solutions out there that can safeguard against the worst case scenario happening, because the worst case scenario is going to happen at some point to you, but you don't need it to turn into this like financially devastating thing. So that's just all I ask is like, think about your own situation, think about what would happen in case your income were to cease, and what kind of coverage do you have, and if you need coverage, then what would that look like? So
And there are a bunch of solutions out there. So, two solutions that I can think of, and when you're disabled, let's say for just a year, you cannot contribute to your retirement. You don't have income coming in, but there are disability insurance products out there that will contribute to your retirement account while you're disabled. So that is a separate product from just the regular everyday insurance that pays you a weekly, bi-weekly benefit for living expenses. So there are also disability insurance products out there that will pay your student loans too. So they have specific purposes out there as well that's separated from generic insurance that you can choose to pay what you want with it for you or 50% get. But then again, imagine we're kind of mid-career, right? And you have group disability insurance and it pays like $3,000 a month and you make $5,000-6,000 a month, but that's barely enough for anything else. And imagine losing also all contributions to your retirement, and maybe you're still paying the last few years of your so really it's just how much do you want to safeguard. And so understanding, taking a look at your expenses or your monies where they're at, and then aligning disability to that. Disability for retirement, for student loan, disability for when you're employed or when you become self-employed and you want to be an entrepreneur. How does that work when you into that career? And so just looking at a very situational basis, life stage basis, and then matching the disability products to the stage scenarios. I think that's really going to help people understand the purpose of disability insurance and how it works. Because I mean, it is really just you're disabled, they pay you, but then I don't think people understand how it saves people.
yeah.
Playing it that way, I know has been very helpful to many of the people that I've asked.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground, and is there anything else that we didn't cover that you wanted to make sure that we mentioned?
No, I'm not gonna source any stats because nobody believes stats. So, yeah, I think just our stories are your two stories are powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And I did mention briefly about my who had breast cancer. She passed already, but she was super. She was only in her early. There's no cancer in the family line, so it was. Yeah. We were just taken aback. Told us of the news that stage 4. One day came back diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer.
Yeah.
It is, you could be super healthy, have no history of it at all in your family, and you one day you wake up and you have a horrible disease.
Yeah. But yeah, it can really happen to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, her 2-year journey, I think she must have racked up at least like $75,000 of extra expenses. So, and that was kind of going on the cheap with care at home and whatever else that she could afford. She had very little savings, so she was one of the Americans who had less than a couple $1,000s in their savings account, which is normal for most of us. So I think continuing to just think about, your family story is going to be helpful. Reading other people's disability stories. So those are kind of my ending words, if you will, to really encourage people to study more about the impact and outcomes of disability, and then they'll really look into themselves.
Yeah. And if anyone watching this wants to learn more about it, or they want to hear, like, I don't sell disability insurance. I just talk about it nonstop. So like, I'm not going to tell you anything because it financially benefits me. So if you ever want an unbiased opinion or an unbiased whatever, like, reach out to me anytime. I'm super happy if anyone reaches out to me. I'm happy to talk about that or anything else. And so I encourage people to just get the information, just get informed about the topic. That's my only ask of you today. So yeah, if anyone wants more information, feel free to reach out. Katiya is no longer in the biz, but Katiya is a educator she has an online school, which we should have a whole other Instagram talk about that, because I'm so obsessed. I'm so obsessed with everything that you do on LinkedIn. Like, Katiya is the most gifted LinkedIn content creator I've ever seen. And if you're on LinkedIn, follow her because she's so amazing. I love watching you. So I'm such a big
fan. Yeah, I don't sell disability insurance. I never did. In the past, I was just a consultant of the products. And today I do it. I call it just community service to continue to teach people about it. But I do know a bunch of financial advisors, insurance agents, as well as a bunch of disability brokerages sell it, that I can send over a massive list. And I would also encourage people to just check out this very awesome nonprofit. It's called the Council of Disability Awareness. And their website is disabilitycanhappen.org. So they're a nonprofit, and you can find a ton of stats and stories around disability, as well as learn more about disability insurance. Disabilitycanhappen.org.
Awesome.
I think
I'm going to
focus on the topic.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll put that information in the caption so people can visit it. Thank you. Thank you so much for chatting and for all of your wisdom. And I appreciate you. And I'm sure we'll be talking very soon about something else, because we have a lot to talk about.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for whoever joined us. It was a pleasure to talk about this subject with you and introduce it to people in your world. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Take care. Bye.